All right. Tuesday, it's got to be Tuesday. It's Higher Lead and Chill. Sean Day, special guest I'll bring in here shortly. Jonathan Maynard's with us, and I'm really, really happy. I'm blessed and excited to have Jonathan aboard. We'll bring him in just a minute. Next Tuesday, I believe we have Kirk Kempton on, I think, next Tuesday. We'll talk about some things then. But normally what I like to do, Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern time, 95% of the time, that's when we're on. If we're not, we'll tell you we change it up. You'll know. So Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern time. Normally what I do is I rattle off a bunch of economic indicators and what's going on in the labor market. But to be honest with you, it's pretty much what it was last week. So if you really want to open up the page and look back for a couple minutes, you can look at the same report last week. So we've got about 10 inches of snow overnight here. I'm in Cleveland, Ohio, more in the snow belt. And if I drive 10 minutes down the road, there will be about 3 inches on the ground. So I am in the snow belt. But let's bring in our special guest, Jonathan Maynard. Jonathan, how you doing, buddy?
Man, I'm doing great. How are you doing, Sean?
Good to have you. Been waiting for this for a while. As you do with most everything you do that I've ever been associated with. It's just you get back quick, you make a decision, and then let's roll with it. And I love it. I've got. I'm going to share to some other groups. If you'll do me the favor to introduce yourself to the 2 or 3 people that might not know who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So, wow, I am from the IT world originally. Back in 2016, started a company called Red Door Pro Wash, and it's an exterior cleaning company. Grew that to over 7 figures. Started another company called Red Door Lighting Company that does landscape lighting and Christmas lights as well. Been doing Christmas lights. I think this is our 6th season doing Christmas lights. And that company does over 7 figures, solid garage floor coatings, an epoxy coating company. And my recent acquisition was a fire and flood restoration company up in Seattle. And I've got employees that run every one of those companies. Thankfully, not involved in the day-to-day anymore. I tend to go in there and screw things up more than I do fix things. So total, we're over 8 figures in total revenue across all companies in the portfolio. Get to be the CEO of the Huge Convention. We bought that back in 2021, myself and a few other business partners. And so my time now is mostly spent just helping business owners kind of get their stuff figured out, how to get them off of the truck if that's their desire. You know, there's a lot of people that they just like being a technician. So if that's helping them figure out, you know, their first hire or their next hire, you know, just helping them navigate kind of the minutia of owning a small home service business.
Beautiful. So, Jonathan, how long ago did you start your first company once you got out of IT?
It would have been 2014. I started a company called Poppin' John's Kettle Corn, which is still in existence to this day. My kids actually showed up a couple weeks ago with a bag of kettle corn, and I was, you know, just happy to still see that. And, you know, that business is still chugging along, and I learned a lot there. And I've also just learned as I've, you know, just grown these other companies, I've learned a ton.
Yep. I want to talk about 2 quick things that are a little off topic before we dig into business stuff. The first thing, 2 important things. Number 1, I want to thank you for something that you might not have thought was a big deal, but was a very big deal to me. And that was when we were going through some things with separating and parting with Blue Sky Services. That was happening basically during the Huge Convention, where you're the CEO of this convention running around like a madman, which most people would be running around like a madman. You were actually running around like an organized human being with a mission. You took the time when you saw me, though. You stopped in your tracks, you turned around, and you said, "Hey, how are you doing?" And there were 10 people talking to you at the same time when that happened. And I followed up with you a little bit, a couple days maybe, or a week after that. I wasn't sure what you meant by that, and then we had some conversation about that. That's the type of person you are, man. And there's not everybody's like that, that you just are aware of the others around you. So where life is taking you is right where I think you probably are going to do the best for God's kids, and that is serving people. If you're running a huge convention, which is huge, and it's just a massive undertaking with a lot of things to manage, a lot of moving parts, to be aware of somebody else and what they're going through like that. I just want to say high five to you for being that type of person. And I just wanted to make sure I made very clear that I wanted to thank you for that.
I appreciate that. Yeah. It sometimes it's the things of just noticing the people around you, and being kind. And I'll tell you, that's a learned skill for me, because there were years where I just head down and more like head in the sand or head up my rear end, and not being aware of those things, and knowing that's something that I always wanted people to do, and I realized that I can't expect other people to do it if I'm not going to do it.
Yep, absolutely. I love that that it's something that you were able to teach yourself. There's so many times that we talk and we see, and people that might be struggling out there with business, or things in life. If you're struggling in business and you're stressing out and you're struggling in business, I almost assure you you're probably struggling in your personal life, because it overlaps. But there are coping tools. Not only are there processes, and we talk about the systems and the operations, and all of those things are important.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the big things that I went through a lot of things about 5 years ago that completely changed my perception on life. A lot of things happened at one time. One of those things was I sold my business to Blue Sky Services about it's probably been longer than that. But it was something I didn't anticipate. I was self-employed for about 25 or 30 years at that time, which was more than half of my life. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden I have no business. And I never saw this coming, but I was actually lost, and it affected my personal life a little bit. And just like you, I had to teach myself to actually stop, figure some things out. But what worked for me best was I stopped thinking about me and started thinking about other people. And I always say, when I think about Sean Day, I get in a lot of trouble, and there's only me, and that's to think about others. I've heard you talk about things like that, and worry, and the one of my favorite sayings, and I think it was Mark Twain, and I hope I don't bomb this, but it's something like, I've had a great many worries in my life, most which have never happened. Right.
Yeah.
And I love that quote. Tell me a little bit more about your journey, because I've known you for a long time, but there was something that kind of I noticed changed. We never really had a conversation about it. Can you touch on it a little bit?
Yeah, it has been an absolute journey. And I haven't always been a nice person. I was the guy that was always upset at traffic. I had a pessimistic outlook on life. And optimists would make me kind of sick. I'd be like, gosh, what is that guy's problem? He's just so happy all the time. He must have it, easy. He, or she, they see life through rose-colored glasses. They're not being a realist, and they need to be a realist, but they need to see how things actually are, not everything's rainbow and sunshine. And I was miserable, absolutely miserable. And then I realized that I wasn't happy. I was chasing a lot of external goals. And it's funny, I'm building a new speech out, a new keynote that's really going to talk about, I guess at the core is going to be happiness, but
Yeah.
It's because we have these outcomes that we want. We have these goals. For example, people go, I want $1 million business. Why? What is really the crux of that? Because we have these outcomes, and before that, you've got these processes that you have to go through. And in order to get, say, if you want, we're going to use $1 million business.
Yeah.
You can't just instantly just get $1 million business unless you buy one, but there's a process to that. But if you're going to build something and go after this goal, then you have to have the processes and the things that you have to do to get that. But really, before any of that, you have your identity. And my identity was completely screwed up. My identity was really self-centered. Um, it I was always seeking more, and there's nothing wrong with seeking more, but I was seeking things that I was trying to fulfill myself with, because I thought, oh, if I could only get $1 million business, then I'll be happy.
Yeah.
If I could only get this thing, then I'll be happy. And I realized that, it's funny. I remember the day my GM came in and he's like, "We just surpassed $1 million." And I was like, okay, I thought it was going to feel so much different. And I was just like,
Right.
okay, well, cool. Let's go to 2,
Yeah.
what now?
Never enough. It's never enough.
It's never enough. And I know so many people that, they, on the outside, they look like they have it all,
Yep.
and they're still miserable because they're constantly seeking these things that just don't bring them fulfillment, because because the things that they've sought are not in line with their identity.
Right.
And so I had that shift. It was in 2022. I know exactly when it was. I know the setup, and I know exactly how it happened. And it was just that realization that it doesn't matter what it is.
Yep.
That will never be enough. And until I actually have gratitude for things,
Right. Right.
and go that way, then I'm not going to be fulfilled. And so now it's really my mission, to help people, just guide them through that. I just want to be a bit of a Yoda, and help people. But I don't want to be a guru. I don't want to be the person, on the internet doing the thing. Because honestly, most people that do that, don't know what they're talking about. And
Right.
you get a lot of people on the internet, they barely make $1 million business, and it's complete dumpster fire. They're in it every day. They're spending 12 hours a day trying to keep the plate spinning. And then they have the bright idea, oh, I'm going to be an internet influencer. I'm going to show other people how to be miserable just like I am.
Right.
Or I'm going to show them how to, I did it and I know what all the mistakes are now. And so I'm going to just show other people. Well,
Right.
no, you haven't done anything. Yeah, you've done something. I'm not going to diminish what a lot of folks have done, but you haven't mastered yourself yet. And I haven't mastered myself.
Well,
So how could I, how could I present myself that way?
There's a lot there that I want to unravel. I think I in my presentation that I give that's specific to recruiting, I spend the first 20 minutes talking about ego and perception. That's as important as anything when it comes to recruiting or most anything. And time again, I personally think the secret to happiness, or the secret to life, as Sean Day sees it, is accepting the people in the world as it is, not how you want it to be, but as it is. That's the easiest thing I can come up with, to 1 or 2 sentences on a whole spiritual talk and philosophical talk about life. And that's really the core of it. And if that means that it doesn't mean you can't strive for good things, it doesn't mean you shouldn't have goals. You shouldn't live and die on goals, though. You can high five when it happens, and you can, if you don't reach them, you don't die, that type of thing. So there's a lot of stuff I get exactly what you're talking about. I've been through a journey in the last few years where I thought I lost control of things. I'll give the example with my house, or with my business. And my wife and I had an extra 4 hours together because I didn't own a business anymore. And so I'm like, hey, baby, what do you want? After a week of me being around, she was just doing what she's done all, for our 25 years of marriage. She finally says, I go fix something or clean something or do something. I'm cooking dinner. I don't know what you want to do here. And the way, and now we talk about perception and controlling other things and situations or people. My thought, my miserable thinking told me she doesn't need me. That's what I heard. She never said that. She was just cooking dinner, doing what she had done for 25. That's not how my perception was at that time. At the same time, my daughter was turning an age where we were high-fiving. I was coaching Little League and going in that, and she's disappeared. She's now a teenager. And it all happened in some other health issues. And it was just like, I'm losing control of everything around me. But you are anyway, no matter if it's good or bad, it's what's here. And I really started to focus inward. And all of a sudden, it's amazing how the world changes and people change when you focus. I mean that, it doesn't, but your perception of it does.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as entrepreneurs, we don't take care of ourselves enough. And if you look at if you invested in a $2 million racehorse, and and that's what we are, if you think about it, because that $2 million racehorse is going to go out, it's going to win races, it's going to make a lot of money for the owner. Now, us as entrepreneurs, we're that $2 million racehorse. We can go out, we can work, and we can produce a ton of income and revenue. And whatever that is for your lifestyle, whatever that's comfortable for some people, $50,000 a year salary is they're living comfortable. For other people, it's 500,000, whatever it is, or 500 million, doesn't matter. We don't take care of ourselves though, like that owner takes care of a racehorse. That racehorse is being fed the best food. It is getting the optimal amount of sleep. It is getting the best medical care. It's getting the best groomers and the best, farriers. They treat that horse like an investment. But the problem is, us as business owners, we're out there shoving McDonald's in our face. We're binging on social media. We are not getting enough sleep. We're not doing things for self-care. So for me, the things like, meditation and yoga, things like that. And people go, oh, this guy just went like complete, like granola, hippie, crunchy kind of thing. And I realized, because I used to think the same thing. I was like, that's stupid. Why would I want to do that? Right. And then I started really looking at people that were where I wanted to be. And they were like, hey, these are the things that I do. Now, I don't suggest you have like a 4-hour morning routine and things like that, because I think that if you go on the internet, that's what everybody's like, oh, you need to meditate for, 30 minutes and you need to do yoga for an hour and you need to do this. And people are like, how can I even do that? I got a business to run. What nonsense is this? And I used to be an all or nothing person. Like, I have to do it all or I'm doing nothing. This is right. And it's like, no, it's baby steps. You start, like, there are days that I couldn't get to my meditation. I had to take my kid to school this morning. So I understand that, but as you continue to progress through this, you have to take care of yourself. And the first thing is finding, that ego and killing that ego and really, seeking to just be peaceful and happy. Yeah. And I think we miss that. And, I think that's one of the biggest downfalls that we've got right now.
I agree. When we talk about the ego, and I'm curious to hear your view, if it's aligned with what I'm about to say or not, or you have a whole different perspective on it, would be great. Is, a lot of people think that ego means, chest out, you're pounding and this is how I look at it. Again, this is just me and where I'm at in my life here. I really feel strongly that I have an ego inside of me and a spirit inside of me. And the ego is all about, there's a reason we have it. It keeps us from walking into a busy traffic and getting run over. We need it to survive. But what tends to happen is that the ego puts us, if you look up the word ego and some synonyms, there's like 10 synonyms that will pop up, and it's something like self-importance, self this, self that. It's all about self. So it's not necessarily that you can go like this. It's basically really focusing on nothing but yourself. And that's really what ego means. And so how is it in business, whether you're interviewing or you're thinking about having, I hate the word mindset because it's overused all the time, but when I use it, I'd like to be specific in what I mean. And what I mean is, how can you have a mindset of, this job candidate or this employee needs to prove something to me in order for them to have the possibility of me offering them a nice position, or offering them a promotion, or offering them this and that. And, it's a lot different when you take the perception of putting that ego on the shelf a little bit. And that's where then the spirit, in my view, or perception then comes in, which is, I'm no longer thinking of Sean Day. I'm now thinking and listening, and they talk about being in the now. I am in the now. When I think about Sean Day, I'm usually thinking about why I did that yesterday. I could have done that better last year. Or, man, am I worried about what's going to happen next week? I got to prepare for that. But when I'm here, I'm able to actually have a beautiful conversation with my wife, my kids, my employees, and actually hear what they're saying. And further, a step further for me, I can actually take myself out of the equation and look at it from their perspective, their experiences. And then I can understand what they're actually talking about, not what my prejudices are on my experiences, but what they're talking about. That's sort of how I look at the ego.
Yeah, there's two things I want to unpack there. The first, what you just said, we have a communication problem, and it's because most of the time we're listening to respond, not listening to understand. So when we're asking, especially in an interview situation, we're asking a question, we're already thinking about the next question, or we're thinking about the red flags that are popping up. We're not trying to really understand their thought processes on the question that we just asked. So we're listening just to talk again, and that most people do that. They're not listening to what you're saying. They're just going. They're responding and coming up and trying to fit what you're saying into their current existing paradigm of thinking. And if it checks, good, we're friends. If it doesn't check, okay, now we got a problem.
Yeah.
Instead of going, well, maybe this person went through some stuff and they have a different perspective to offer, or a different line of thinking. Now, there are people that do say some off the wall crazy stuff, and okay, that's their experience. Now, it may not drive with you and your company, and it may not work out, but if you're listening for understanding, you're going to at least know where they're coming from. And then you could go, okay, yeah, they're not going to be right for this organization because they think this way that's in conflict with our core values. Right. And you have to really put emphasis on that as they're going. So, that's the communication piece that I think we lack. As far as the ego goes, yeah, ego is self-preservation. It is the thing that keeps you, like you said, from running out in traffic. It's the thing whenever you're working out that keeps you from exerting yourself too hard. I think it was probably David Goggins that talked about this. But I know when I went through the academy, it was kind of the same thing. That it was this, and like you said, mindset was they told us that your body is going to give out, your mind is going to give out way before your body.
Yeah.
So your ego is that self-preservation thing. And that's the thing that's going to tell you, oh, you need to slow down. You don't need to do this, because in your mind's way of view, it's still the lizard brain, and it's still thinking, don't push yourself too hard, because that, you might encounter another tiger. Your brain doesn't know the difference between, running from a tiger or just running for, enjoyment, because they're thinking is they're doing the calculation on exertion, and they're going, hang on, we don't have enough in this tanks. and they're gonna cut you off when you still probably have 40% more to go, or 50% or 60% more that you could do. It's kind of like the rat in the water. There was this experiment done years ago where they had these cylinders of water, and they put the rat in there, and after like 2 minutes, the rat would drown and die. It's sad. But then what they did is they knew, okay, on average they drown at about 2 minutes. So what they did is they took and they pulled the rat out at 1 minute and 30 seconds, let it catch its little rat breath, and then put him back in the water. You know how long that rat went?
2 minutes.
Hours. No, he went for hours after that.
Isn't that something? Wow.
Because they tasted, they were like, okay, we can get through this.
Yeah.
And so they would just tread water for hours.
Yeah.
We're just like that. And our ego is the thing that basically suppresses that and keeps us from really reaching what we should reach, because we think we have to stop in order to preserve our life.
Yep. Yep. Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. It's and so perception is one of those things that's a goofy thing too. I've got a very dear, close person that's gone through some cancer. Was really depressed about it about 10 years ago or so, maybe 15 years ago. Wasn't given very good news to make it as far as he has. A couple times, shouldn't have. And it was difficult to have a conversation and know what to say and that sort of thing. And I think a lot of us have been in that situation before. Most everybody knows somebody with cancer and so on. But it was amazing to me. In the middle of all of that, all of a sudden, during chemo, during radiation, when you're supposed to go home and be exhausted on a couch, he decided he was going to actually get online, figure out what you're supposed to eat, take some initiative on his own, not just what his doctors are saying. Went to the gym 4 or 5 times a week. Ended up losing 100 pounds, not because of the health issue, but because of going to the gym and eating right and exercising. When you call this person on the phone and his wife answers, she says he's over helping Fred fix his lawnmower. He's never home. He's always out. I'm on my phone one time and I'm on a group text and it's, hey, I miss you guys. I love you guys. I would never hear that type of thing from this guy in my lifetime. And all of a sudden, everything changed on how he is behaving in the world today and how happy he is. Yeah. Not one damn thing changed around him. Not one thing changed around him. From that type of, I don't even know how to have a conversation with you. You're so depressed about things. And I get it, to, I don't even know where you are anymore because you're out helping the world and you're serving people and you're happy and it's just amazing. That's perception, man. When you can get to that point. How do you get to that point when you don't necessarily have life-threatening issues? Because life-threatening issues can change a lot of things for you. But just in day-to-day business, you're trying to, you've been doing the same damn thing. You're working, you've tried a couple things. Mm-hmm. There's so many people that aren't successful out there that I think a couple tweaks here or there. What's your vision or what's your view on that, Jonathan, with perception and how that affects people?
I think it's huge, and most of us are not going to go through an event that is a life-altering event, such as us getting cancer or us getting, this horrible thing. I think the universe doesn't really scream at us that way. I think it whispers, and if we miss those whispers, I think that's where we're gonna miss it. So, how do you change your perception? First, honestly, I think it's gratitude, and I think it starts with that, and it is being grateful for what you have already, the things you already have. We are abundant, but we don't see that abundance because what we do is we see social media, and I love it and I hate it. I love it because of the things that it can teach you and the things you can learn. I think we have a lot of information these days, and I think it's great. The problem that I find with it is we compare, and comparison is the thief of joy. And if I see, I'm going to call out JC Chanowski. He sent me a text earlier, so he's on my brain. he'll post something and it's easy to look at somebody like that and go, man, he's got it together and he's just doing these super cool things. And here I am stuck in, 10 inches of snow and he's down there on the beach and my life is terrible and his life is awesome. And I'm just going to sit here and be miserable about it. Instead of going, hey, guess what? I have enough health. I can go out there and I can shovel my snow. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I get to look out and see the beauty of snow from the inside of my very warm home, you know. And we're not grateful for these things. We see the worst in everything, and I think that's human nature. We look around and we you look around your house and you see all the broken stuff. You see all the bad things. You look at your relationship and you think about all the fights you've had. You don't think about all the years that you've had without fights. You see your kids and you zone in on the things that they're doing wrong, not the things that they're doing right. I'm preaching to myself here. And so you fracture relationships in that because you're seeing the worst in every situation instead of being grateful and going, hey, these are the things that I need to do. When I was talking about, this is my life's work, I think of helping people get through that is I literally help people move from a place of that was me. I was the guy shaking my fist at the cars. I don't get frustrated in traffic. I live on the I-95 corridor, 25 minutes outside of DC, depending on the day, or 40 minutes or 4 hours. I used to hate getting on I-95, and I still do. Do I have a preference? If anybody's got a preference, I'm not going to get on I-95. My wife will tell you. But if I do have to get on there, I look at it. I change my perspective. I'm in a $90,000 truck driving, and I've got a massaging seat, and it doesn't matter if I was driving a $2,000 car that had brake problems and blown blue smoke. You know what? I'm not walking.
That's right.
And if I was walking, I'm thankful I can walk. And if I'm in a wheelchair, I'm thankful I have a wheelchair where I can go. And if I don't have a wheelchair and I'm having to crawl, I'm thankful I still have life in my blood that I can crawl. You have to, whatever the situation you have is the situation you have to be grateful for.
Yeah.
Because I'm in a nice truck. I'm going up I-95, but you know what I could think? Man, that guy in that Ferrari just passed me. Must be nice to have a Ferrari. Or you look up and you go, man, that's a private jet. Wish I had a private jet.
Right. That goes back to my point too of acceptance. All those things are accepting the world as it is, your world and your health and your this as it is. The one thing that you've mentioned 2 or 3 times now is when you and Jason's on here talking about a lot of bigger businesses. He's kind of comparing himself to that. And what happens is most of the time, if not every single time, when we compare ourselves to other people or businesses, it's never when we're in a good, positive frame of mind about ourselves. And so we're going to lose that battle every single time. We don't go, man, I just reached $1 million. Let me go look at somebody else and see how we're too busy celebrating or doing things. Yeah. It's always when we're hurt, we compare ourselves to somebody else. And then the worst thing that happens, and we don't realize this, is we always compare our inside and how we're feeling to somebody's outside. We don't know how they're feeling. We don't know what they're going through. We just see what we think that, they just, like you said earlier, they look happy, they seem happy, but maybe they're really suffering inside. But we can't compare their insides. We don't know what their heart's like at that time. And as far as the being grateful and in certain situations, like you said and you outlined, there was a study that I remember reading one time years ago about people that were in wheelchairs and paralyzed, but they weren't born that way. It was something after they were all in their 20s when it happened, or at least over 20. Mm-hmm. And they surveyed that pool of humans that were in that situation. And then they surveyed the people around them, their family and friends. And here's the conclusion and exactly what happened. Those friends and family that said that person was sort of miserable and a pain in the ass before they were in the wheelchair are still a pain in the ass and miserable. Those that said that this guy was always happy, the room just lit up when he came in, always positive, guess what? Was still that way, crippled in a wheelchair, to your point. That's all perception. I talk about this sometimes, a very simple, because I'm a simple guy, very simple way of putting it is it's pouring rain and I've got a job with a shovel in my hand and I'm shoveling and I'm going, this rain absolutely sucks. Why is it raining? It's just heavier now and it sucks. I don't want to be in this rain all day. And I look over 10 minutes later in that same rain, and I'm looking over and I hear these two little ones in their diapers running around those mud puddles, giggling and laughing and playing and having fun. My whole perception changes. My inside lights up and I giggle along with them as I'm watching them. You put me on a lie detector test, and when I say that rain sucks when I was shoveling, and then 10 minutes later, put me on a lie detector, and I'm going to tell you this rain is awesome. Look at these little kids. I will pass both of those. So it has nothing to do with truth. No. It has more to do with your perception. And because your truth could be different than mine based on your experience and everything else. So when you're looking for the truth, sometimes that's hard to find. And I think perception, if I can understand my employees' perceptions or my vendors or my banker when I'm trying to negotiate things with him or my personal life, the better I am at understanding their perception, the better chance I have of leading them to my vision, my goal, and where I want to be in life. And that's just, you touched on that, and I thought it was just awesome. What else did you have that I thought was really good? So when you're spending most of your time coaching then or consulting? I know you talked about you're doing, a little bit about the importance of having an integrator in business and things like that. Where are you at with all that stuff with helping people?
Yeah, so it's consulting. I don't do the coaching route. I do a lot of consulting. Company180.com is the website, and the integrator part is really just showing people how to implement EOS into their businesses, entrepreneurial operating system based on the book Traction by Gino Wickman. And because I think it's a great framework. Is it the end all be all? No, but it's a good framework. And really just helping people figure that out and figuring out really how to, best find their identity, and then make sure that they are doing the things that they need to do to fulfill that. So the first thing I do is look and go, okay, what do you want? And for a lot of people, they have this revenue number that's in their head, and I'm like, that's not it, because I know people that have businesses they're doing $300,000-$400,000 a year, and they're just the happiest people in the world. They have a technician that goes out there and does the work. They do the sales, and they run it out of their garage, and people will look down on that person. But I have met people that have businesses doing $2 and $3 and $4 million that have less dollars on their bottom line than the guy that has that business that's doing $300,000-$400,000. And whenever you start looking at other people's businesses, all you're looking at is revenue. Like earlier I mentioned, I've got 5 or so companies in my portfolio. It's over 8 figures in annual revenue, and people look at that and go, oh, that must be awesome. It can be it on days, but there are days where there are just different kinds of problems, and luckily I'm not in the day-to-day and answering customer complaints and things like that. But it's different. And if you start comparing, one to the other, that's really where, that could be a problem, because I've got friends that have businesses that are doing, 9-10 figures. And if I look at that and compare myself and go, I wish I had their life, maybe I don't.
Right.
because it's not aligned with who I am. And if you don't know who you are and you don't have a good, firm um, idea of what your identity is and the things that are going to make you happy, because you think, if I have $1 million business, I'll be happy. Or if you have $1 million business, I need a $2 million business. If I get that, it'll make me happy. Or if I finally, get that wife or get that husband, then I'll be happy. Or if I finally have a kid, then I'll be happy. It you can't look at it that way. So we narrow it down. We figure that out. We figure out how to optimize you as a human being, and then once you are kind of 360 optimized, and that very different and distinct facets of your life, and one small one is business.
Yeah.
We all see these guys that go out and make these, have these big businesses. Maybe that's not in the cards, but we assign status to that. And we go, look at the size of my business. We buy these big trailers and all this stuff, and we buy all these things to try to impress the people who told us it will never make it. We want an office so our parents will be proud of us. We want these things, and it has nothing to do with what makes us happy. I've now realized, and I turn down way more stuff than I take on these days, because I look at it and I go, that's going to stress me out.
Right.
I don't want that, because it's gonna cause a problem. This acquisition I made with the fire and flood restoration company, I went into that earlier this year thinking, oh, okay, yeah, that's going to be super simple. We're just going to do this, this, and this. I'll never have to touch it. I'm just an investor. Everything's going to be fine. And then it turned into a giant nuclear-powered dumpster fire.
Yeah.
And it's okay now, or it's getting okay. It's getting healthy, but I had to dive in there and start doing things that I didn't expect that I had to do. And all it did was stress me out. And it was like, was it worth it? I don't know. Maybe someday it will be. But, at the moment, do people just look at it and go, oh, he's got a company that'll do, $8-9 million next year. That's so awesome. Not really, if it's stressing you out, if it's in contrast to your identity. Right.
So, I think one of the things that I think about as you talk about that specifically is your identity. I think it's really hard to be honest with ourselves, because we don't look at ourselves as other people do and see ourselves. It's hard to know who you really are, even though you're, anywhere I go, Sean Day is there, right? Yeah. You would think I know myself real well. But it's hard to look in the mirror sometimes and look at facts and be okay with it just because you're stepping away. I don't want to get emotional about this, but I just want to be honest and I've done this exercise. I want to write down everything that I think I'm not happy with. Who am I? What am I doing? How am I feeling? How am I acting? What am I not doing that I wish I was if it was my son, and I'd be proud of, and I'd be happy for him, and I'd like to see him be happy. And just really, because it helps me step away and be honest with myself when I can really write it down, put a little bit of thought to it, and then say, yep, that is a big default of mine. That is a problem of mine. And so then I can at least know where to start. I know if I can look in the mirror and I can be honest with myself, and you lay it out beautifully. Identity. What is your identity?
Yeah.
And what's really cool too, I think, is we evolve from that. There's no end game here. There's not a finish line and you reach it, you go over it, and you're done. Nope. You grow, right? And so those are things I've heard you touch on in different presentations. Talk about that a little bit, because it's easy to get off course too a little bit, right?
It is. And one thing I would caution people is you have to focus on the things you want and not the things you don't want. Think of it like this. We've all seen the video, or I've seen it with my own eyes and in real life in front of me. If you put a kid on a bicycle in a parking lot and there's one light pole in the parking lot, that kid's going to hit the light pole. Yeah. They're going to hit the light pole. Because they're so focused on not hitting it that's the only thing they're focused on. And you will go towards the thing you're focused on, whether you like it or not.
Love it.
And so if people are, and this happens all the time in relationships, they'll go, oh, well, in my significant other, I don't want somebody that's this way. I don't want somebody that's that way. And then what do? You end up with that person instead of going, I want the person that is like this. And if you start focusing that way and you focus on the positive things, you're going to automatically avoid the negative things. You want to have a bit of realism in there, because I'm sure we've all met people that they're not in our reality.
Right.
You go, I don't understand this person. They are absolutely not functioning in our reality. They think that everything is, rainbow and sunshine, but the world is literally falling down around their ears. And we look at it and go, they're stupid, or they just don't have it together. Maybe not. Maybe they are just seeing reality the way they want to see it, and they're just happy. And that's okay. You do want to have a dose of realism. You don't want to forget about the future. Because I've seen people do that. They just go off the deep end,
Right.
and they take all their life savings and they bet on red.
Right.
And for the record, if you're going to take your life savings, bet on black. But you,
if there's anything, if there's one thing you're taking from today, folks, it's that.
Bet on black. But you do want to be pragmatic in some regard, but you also you do want to kill that ego, because that ego is the thing that is going to keep you from achieving the things you need to achieve, because it is trying to preserve life as it is today.
Yeah.
That's what it's doing. It's preserving your current situation. And if you're happy with your current situation, if your life is 100% worry-free and everything's going exactly the way that you think it should, great.
Yeah.
Then your ego is probably honestly in check. But if your ego is the thing that's it's called homeostasis, and they want your ego wants to keep equilibrium,
Right.
and no growth and no decline. But we know how things actually work. If you're not growing, you're dying.
Yep.
There's no living thing that is just there. It's either growing or dying. It's either, if you think about plants, they're not there. They're either growing or they're dying. They're shriveling up. And we're just like that. So you really have to focus on the things you want. You have to have those outcomes out there. You have to have the goals. But if you don't have the habits in place to get the goals, then you're never going to achieve the goals. And if your identity is not secure, then you're not going to know what habits to form to get those outcomes. And your outcomes always change. Your identity generally stays the same for longer periods of time.
Right.
But your outcomes always change. Once you get $1 million, okay, now to 2. Once you get that, that spouse, you shouldn't probably get more of those, but you're going to want to develop that relationship. You want to grow closer to that person. So your outcomes are going to change, but really your identity, either like pessimistic or optimistic, until something happens like me in 2022 that said, I'm not happy.
Right.
I'm a miserable human being, and I'm getting, depression, if you want to put a label on it. And besides that, making myself miserable, I'm making everybody else around me miserable.
Right. Yeah, that's good stuff. Let's do this. I'm going to wrap it up. I've got this. We had a snow day at school, but my son, who is in band, was supposed to play at the band was supposed to play at the Cleveland Cavaliers game tonight.
Oh, wow.
We can't get buses out there, so parents are trying to get together. The tickets are all bought. So I've got to cut the show a little bit short today by about 10 minutes.
No worries.
Jonathan, I could talk to you for another hour, 2, 3, man. Are you ice fishing in February?
I am ice fishing in February.
I might see you there then. I think I'm going to try to make it this year.
Awesome.
Yeah,
it'll be fun.
That'll be fun. All right, cool. So if I post company180.com up there, if somebody wants to reach out to you, can you give us an idea of who would be a good candidate to get in touch with you?
If you're struggling with just you're directionless, and you're at a place in life and you're looking around going, how in the world did I get here, and how do I get out? Um, I'm your dude. If you are struggling with how to run meetings in your company and you're looking at EOS and go, I just don't know what the next step is, I can help you with that as well.
Awesome. So you got somebody that's got a lot of experience, a lot of success as far as business success, and is wise enough to look at life when he's not feeling real good about it and making a serious change, and in a pretty short amount of time, too, Jonathan. That's another thing that's very impressive and what I noticed. It's not as though you and I are best friends, but we've known each other a number of years, and just from things that we've been involved with together, whether we've seen each other somewhere or whatever it is, or we are at conferences together, just first class. And I can't say that about everybody that I meet. You were certainly one of them. And if you are going to trust anybody that's on the social media stuff out there, and I'm hearing this a lot more too as time's gone on in the last few years, a lot of people saying, I'm sick of all the gurus out there. I'm sick of everybody's a coach now. Everybody's a consultant. So I can tell you that I do everything I can to put people on our show that if we're going to talk about consulting or any type of coaching, I will have a lot to know about that person before I get him on my show. And you can take Jonathan and what he's going to help you with if you reach out to him to the bank, that he's a good guy, a trustworthy guy, and he's got a lot of people that he's helped out, and his heart's in the right place. And like he said, he's kind, and he's going to help you one way or another. So reach out to him. I'm going to post it up there. Jonathan, my man, it was good to see you. I appreciate everything you do for people out there.
Thanks.
All right. Next Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern time, we're going to be with Kirk Kempton, Responsible, and talk. I don't know what we're talking about. I think him and I are actually going to talk a little bit about some stuff with God in business and how to balance your relationship with God or your higher power, and how do you do that and not be greedy and not be forceful and not be, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be this way. So we'll talk about that next week. Jonathan, I'm going to reach out to you if you don't mind. Of course, I'm going to put you on the spot in front of all these people, but I know you, if this isn't comfortable, you'll tell me no. I'd like to do something, even if it's just small, something with you. Whether it's a little webinar thing or something like that for free or something that we can do, because I'm really aligned, and my life at 56 years old here has really taken a really positive turn for perception and understanding the ego and understanding my identity a lot better than I did when I was 10 years ago or even 6 years ago. So maybe we can do something together to help some people out.
Yeah, heck yeah, I'm in.
All right, buddy. All right, everybody, take good care. We're going to end it now. See you next Tuesday. God bless, and stay warm if you're in Northeast Ohio, man. Take care.